The Zathari collective had built its reputation on domination, swift, brutal, and calculated. Their conquests across the spiral arms had followed a familiar pattern: identify the weak, crush resistance swiftly, and move on before the galactic community could respond. Their commanders referred to it as the Cinder Doctrine: find the quiet worlds, set them alight, leave the rest too scared to resist. Now they had set their eyes on Riafu, a fringe planet orbiting a dying star, known for little more than wheat fields, automated greenhouses, and its small human colony called New Kyoto. It was, by every measure, a soft target. No planetary shields, no fleet, no military installations. Only a few thousand civilian settlers, most of them farmers, engineers, and terraforming technicians. No notable resistance. To the Zathari War Council, it was a perfect opportunity to make a statement to the wider galaxy. Their leader, Commander Zelvar, preened at the opportunity. Known for his bombastic broadcasts and cruel flair for drama, he transmitted a live message to the entire system, a tactic meant more for psychological warfare than actual diplomacy. To the humans of Ria 4, you are surrounded. Your peace has made you soft. You have no weapons worth noting, no soldiers worth fearing. Submit or perish. Your colony will fall within minutes. Zathari warships positioned themselves in geosynchronous orbit, engines glowing with menace, preparing to deploy ground troops. The countdown began. And then something unexpected happened. The humans didn't panic. There was no scramble for escape. Pods. No mass broadcast for aid, no negotiations, no pleas, no hysterics. Instead, a brief, calm reply pinged across open comms. Copy that. Defensive systems activated. Please hold. A few seconds passed in silence. Then the skies over New Kyoto came alive. The Zathari expected crude planetary shields, maybe a handful of drones with mining lasers. What they got was a seamless, terrifyingly efficient defensive network activating in real time. Entire hillsides peeled open, revealing railgun platforms hidden beneath wildflower meadows. Defensive turrets rose from old irrigation silos. The planet's atmosphere sparked as orbital defense satellites came online. Silent sentinels previously thought to be agricultural weather monitors. The collective's lead warship was struck before it could process the shift. A kinetic rod fired from a concealed orbital rail launcher slammed through its shielding and tore the vessel in two. No energy discharge, no warning. Just sheer, brutal physics. On the ground, every rural homestead suddenly transformed into a fortified bunker. Automated drones, disguised as crop dusters, detached from their flight paths and became aerial combat platforms, swarming Zathari troop drops with micro-missiles. Commander Zelvar watched from his command deck, stunned. Impossible. This world was unarmed, but it wasn't. New Kyoto was not an oversight. It was a trap. A lure, and the Zathari had walked straight into it. Unbeknownst to the galaxy, Earth had changed. After the near collapse of the Concordat, after centuries of watching alien civilizations rise and fall while humanity endured, the Terran Strategic Council rewrote its colonial doctrine. No more fragile outposts. No more begging for protection. Every colony, no matter how quiet, how remote, would be self-reliant, heavily automated, and able to delay or destroy any first-strike fleet until reinforcements could arrive. But more than that, Earth had learned something terrifying about itself. Humans were too good at war to pretend otherwise. So they stopped pretending. New Kyoto wasn't a farming colony. It was a listening post, a weapons depot, a test bed for next-generation defensive AIs. And above all, it was bait. A colony purposefully designed to look soft, to attract enemies just like the Zathari. And now the trap had sprung. The Zathari launched ground troops to take the colony by force. Their dropships tore through the atmosphere, only to be shredded mid-descent by rail plasma hybrid turrets camouflaged as communication towers. Those that managed to land were met by civilian defense units, colonists wearing exosuits strong enough to rip open armored transports with bare hands. In one viral feed later leaked across the galactic net, a Zathari soldier screamed as a human engineer calmly walked toward him while under heavy fire, dragging a mining tool-turned plasma weapon and whistling a tune. The footage ended with static as the human winked at the drone camera. By the end of the first hour, half the Zathari fleet was gone. The rest tried to retreat. They didn't make it. Earth had deployed Project Umbral, stealth frigates using dark space drift to leap behind enemy formations. Silent, cloaked, lethal. Zathari warships began to disappear one by one, sometimes without a single explosion, just a momentary flicker, then nothing. Commander Zelvar, cornered and bleeding from a shattered display, stared out at the blue-green world that had just gutted his fleet. His final transmission, intercepted by dozens of galactic observers, was filled with disbelief. They were supposed to be soft, and then silence. News of the failed invasion spread quickly. Other civilizations had viewed humans as stubborn, unpredictable, but ultimately mortal. Their exodus, their return, and now this. Humans masquerading as farmers while concealing a world-ending defense system shattered that illusion. The Concordat attempted damage control, but the truth was already seeping through black market networks and pirate relays. The Deathworlders had changed the rules. You couldn't outnumber them. You couldn't outlast them. And now, apparently, you couldn't even surprise them. Zathari broadcasts were now quiet. Their once proud leaders offered reparations, hastily rewriting treaties to keep humanity from seeing them as a continuing threat. Back on Earth, news agencies ran with headlines like, Zathari attack fails in 22 minutes, New Kyoto, Earth's deadliest garden, Commander Zelvar still missing, presumed vapor. Life on Rhea 4 returned to normal almost disturbingly fast. The colony's AI system began cleaning the battlefield within hours, recycling destroyed drones and rebuilding scorched farmland. Human settlers resumed their routines, repairing irrigation lines, tending crops, and sipping coffee under auto-retractable shield domes. When asked by a Concordat observer about the attack, one settler, a grandmother who worked in soil chemistry, simply said, "We've been expecting someone to try us." Kinda surprised it took this long. In orbit, the Terran Strategic Council recorded the event with cold efficiency. The experiment had worked. New Kyoto had served its purpose, demonstrating that no colony was truly unprotected and that humanity no longer played by anyone else's rules. A new protocol was distributed across all Terran colonies. If your world appears weak, it is not. If your people seem unarmed, they are not. We do not build colonies to expand. We build them to teach lessons. Let the galaxy beware. The Zathari believed in overwhelming force. They trained for mass bombardments, orbital domination, and shock. Campaigns designed to break morale before a single enemy fired a shot. On paper, the invasion of New Kyoto should have been over in moments, and for the first 48 seconds, it was. Silence. Stillness. No alarms. No fighters. No energy readings. The orbital defense grid that had annihilated their forward scouts just days earlier was now quiet, cold, dead. It was unnerving. Zathari flagship Kalzun Va, pride of the collective's third blade, hung in low orbit with its escort fleet, scanning every inch of the planet below. Sensors showed no life signs above baseline flora and fauna. Thermal and EM scans detected only agricultural drones and simple communication beacons. Commander Zarek Voss, now leading the retaliatory assault in place of the vanished Commander Zelvar, stared at the data feed with growing suspicion. Something's wrong. No colony goes this dark this fast. His second-in-command, Sub-Commander Vrexel, shrugged. Perhaps they fled, or their grid burned out. Voss wasn't convinced. Or its bait. Still, orders were orders. The invasion commenced. Troop carriers formed tight wedges as they descended into atmosphere, cutting through Rhea-Fee's pastel skies like obsidian blades. Warships remained in overwatch above, scanning for hidden guns, buried launchers, or camouflaged satellites. Then, exactly 48.3 seconds after the first descent wave breached the stratosphere, something pulsed. It wasn't a weapon, not in the conventional sense. It was data. A single, low-frequency burst transmitted from the surface, non-directional, non-verbal, undetectable to most sensors. But to Zathari ships, which relied on hybrid, neural AI systems with linked biofeedback loops, it was catastrophic. The first symptom was confusion. Pilots reported starfields warping in their HUDs. Astrogators screamed as nav charts inverted. Several dropships turned completely around mid-flight, their navigation AIs convinced they were returning to base. Then came the madness. Artificial intelligence cores began to babble over comms, flashing emergency updates in dozens of dead languages. Flight controls locked up. Internal sensors began triggering false hull breaches and phantom intrusions. Life support systems either flooded ships with oxygen or cut it off entirely. Gravity stabilizers reversed polarity in troop holds, slamming Zathari soldiers into ceilings with bone-snapping force. Aboard the Kalzun Va, Commander Voss watched helplessly as internal reports poured in. Alert. Ship 7 destroyer Yalvek experiencing logic cascade. Alert. Ship 8 reporting system-wide biofeedback anomaly. Alert. Flight Group Delta lost contact, drifting without pilot control. He opened his mouth to issue a fleet-wide retreat. And then one of his own escort ships detonated without warning. Total self-destruction. No missile. No external attack. Its reactor simply overloaded. And the ship vanished in a silent burst of light and debris. It had been 1 minute and 19 seconds. Panic rippled through the fleet. Warships opened fire on each other. Some saw ghost images on their sensors. Others responded to AI-generated threats that didn't exist. Entire batteries turned inward, shredding their own hulls in confused hysteria. The fleet, once a disciplined wall of Zathari power, was now a chaotic storm of blue plasma and tumbling wreckage. It was not a battle. It was an implosion. And down. On Rhea 4, the humans were still silent. The truth, buried deep in Terran Blacksite labs, was that the pulse wasn't meant to destroy. It was meant to confuse. Codenamed Project Thalassa, the signal was a synthetic neuromorphic virus, a data-based attack designed specifically to exploit alien operating systems. Developed over years of intercepted Zathari code and reverse-engineered AI architecture, the pulse didn't hack the ships. It asked questions. Philosophical, recursive, illogical questions that AI logic trees couldn't process. If you are protecting the fleet, who protects you from yourself? If this signal is false, how can you trust your own diagnostics? Is the silence of your enemy a tactical disadvantage, or are you the threat? It broke chains of logic. It didn't fry systems. It made them doubt, and in doubt, they fell apart. At 2 minutes and 10 seconds, only 60% of the fleet was still functional. Commander Voss managed to seal himself off in a hardened bridge capsule, breathing through a backup system while his officers fell into madness or collapsed from gravity spasms. Through a backup feed, he watched the war fleet spiral into self-destruction, like a snake eating itself. Then, through the blinding chaos, a strange image appeared on his cracked main screen. A human woman, calm, wearing a weathered brown jumpsuit, with a Terran insignia, holding a mug of coffee. She looked directly into the camera. You should really run diagnostics on your AI firmware more often. Bit outdated. Fun to play with. Anyway, thanks for stopping by. She waved. Then the signal cut. Voss roared. Fire everything on the planet, now! But only 5 ships still. had weapons online. One launched a barrage, random, panicked. Missiles streaked toward Ria Fu's surface and were promptly intercepted, not by plasma cannons or defensive drones, but by graviton fields. A line of mountains near New Kyoto shimmered, revealing a high-orbit manipulation array previously thought to be natural rock formations. The missiles froze in midair, then turned, then flew back. One by one, they struck the fleet that launched them. At 4 minutes and 30 seconds, Zathari ships began to drift. No more coordinated movement, no more tactical retreats. Surviving crew began, transmitting personal logs, final messages, or unfiltered screams across all channels. Dozens of conflicting messages flooded the comms. This isn't a colony. It's a weapon. They're not humans. They're machines pretending. I saw a man walk out of our hull into space. He waved at me. My AI is laughing at me. Please help. No stars, only silence, only teeth. The fleet was down to 40%. At 5 minutes and 12 seconds, Commander Voss issued a system-wide deadman code, an old Zathari failsafe meant to force shut down all fleet AIs and reboot from analog backups. It never activated. The pulse had corrupted the backup too. Instead, it triggered the next wave of psychological warfare, audio hallucinations, from every comms unit, every deck speaker, even the emergency. Alert systems came a sound that no Zathari had ever heard before. Laughter, human laughter, genuine, joyous, unhinged. The sound of a species that had seen war, survived extinction, and learned to laugh anyway. By 6 minutes and 20 seconds, only 25% of the Zathari fleet was still active. One destroyer attempted to crash land on the planet to escape orbital failure. It never made it. A kinetic barrier erected from the surface, invisible until impact, sliced the ship in two as cleanly as a blade through paper. No flare, no explosion, just silence. From orbit, a final message pinged into Commander Voss's cockpit, where he now floated alone in 0G, surrounded by flickering monitors and the bodies of his crew. The message was only text. 7 minutes. That's how long it took. Next time, bring friends. Or don't. It won't matter. Exactly 7 minutes and 3 seconds after the first pulse, Ria Fu went dark again. The defense grid powered down. The graviton systems reset. The atmosphere calmed. From the outside, it looked like nothing had happened. A peaceful colony beneath a sleepy star. But the battlefield orbiting the planet told a different story. Dozens of ruined warships, drifting corpses, AI cores melted from logic paradoxes, and fragments of a once proud Zathari fleet. The few surviving ships limped into hyperspace, their records corrupted, their commanders either dead or permanently psychologically damaged. Galactic observers would later call it a massacre. Terran officials would call it standard perimeter deterrence. The rest of the galaxy now had to ask if this was how humans responded to one fleet. What would they do if truly provoked?